All right, folks, welcome back to another Partworks video. This one we're going to be looking at how do we create our toolpaths that we need for the CNC to run. Now, this is kind of where our code starts to be generated. There's a few more tweaks that we'll talk about in the next video, which really sets you up for success then at the CNC machines. But right now, we're looking at how do we create these toolpaths that will eventually make its way to that machine. So we're done in the drawing tab. We looked at how to bring our drawing in the last video. This job setup kind of depends on the material that you're working with. A lot of the material, like I said, comes in around 5-6 inches in width. And so we typically can only get 2 pieces on. We're going to create one standard file that we can run on all the boards. So if you have a board that's a little bit wider, that's okay. We're still going to run the same file. So creating separate files for each piece of material. So most of the time, you're going to get 2 parts cut out of the same board, typically. So let's go ahead and close out of the drawing tab. We're just going to go ahead and unpin that from the screen. And we're going to look at our toolpath tab, which is on the right side of our screen here. So if you just left click, pin that at the top there, you'll see it. And we're going to be making 2 different toolpaths. In this class, we're looking at a pocket toolpath, which is for the holes. And we're going to be looking at a profile toolpath, which is for the outside edge of our shape. In this case, we're looking at the legs specifically. So let's start with that pocket toolpath. This will be for each of the holes. So we're going to go ahead and hold down Shift, select those holes that you drew up in Onshape. They are precise, and therefore the CNC is going to drill those out perfectly for us. And the toolpath is in the top row to create a pocket. It's going to be your 4th icon in from the left or 3rd in from the right. Again, first row. So left click on that toolpath. Start depth for this is going to be 0, which would be the top of the board. Our cut depth is going to be the final thickness of our material. If you haven't noticed, the material that we're starting with is at 7/8. We're going to be machining down to 3/4 of an inch with using the cutters on the CNC machine. And therefore, our final thickness when we're all said and done for each of the parts is going to be 3/4 of an inch or 0.75. So let's go ahead and type that in. Our tool that we're going to use is an end mill. However, it's not 0.125. That would also be known as an 1/8 inch. So we're going to go ahead and hit select. And you're going to find the tool that we're using under inch tools in our tool database. And it's called end mill 0.25. So once you have that selected, you'll see it over here. End mill 0.25, the diameter should say 0.25. Now here's the things that we're going to change. We're going to look at our pass depth. So this is how deep the bit goes each time it's making a cut. I'd like to change that to 0.05. So it will take a little bit longer to get to the final depth, but it's going to make the bits last a lot longer here in class. So once you've done that, now you can go ahead and hit apply and OK. That means we should never have to go back and hit past or change that pass depth again, as long as we need that 0.05 to stay there. So apply is only done the first time you use that bit here in this class. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And the next thing it's going to do is talk about clearing the pocket. In this case, we're using what's called an offset, so that is fine. And we can hit calculate down at the bottom. When you hit calculate, you might see a preview screen come up, or also known as a 3D view. This is great because you can actually preview what those holes are going to look like in the 3D view before you actually go to the CNC machine. What do the red lines indicate? If you weren't sure, that just simply means that the machine will be moving from this corner here to each of the different pockets and eventually making its way to the last one in that rotation. So kind of like a backwards C, if you will. You can preview that toolpath simply clicking that button that says preview toolpath. If you wanted a global fill color so you can see exactly what machine is being machined a little bit better, you can move the part around to get a better angle if you looked at something specifically in detail. So a lot of different options there. I tend to look at it straight on, looking down at the top of the board. Now, we're done with that toolpath. However, we still have one more to create. So we're going to hit close here, and we're going to go back into our drawing, which is under the Partworks tab. And now I can go ahead and create my profile toolpath. Again, selecting more than one object is going to require you to hold down Shift. Make sure that when you are selecting the objects that you want to machine, you don't accidentally have the holes, for instance, selected in addition to the outside edge. Otherwise, you're going to see a pocket and a profile for the exact same part, or part of the part, I should say. So definitely double check that before you go into creating your toolpath. So I have just the outside edge selected for each of the specific parts. In that top row, again, you're going to see a third icon in from the left called Create Profile Toolpath. This is how we cut out the outside edge of our parts that we're going to make here in class. So click that icon, scroll all the way to the top if it isn't already there. Start depth, again, is going to be 0. Cut depth is going to be the same as what we had for the pocket, so 0.75. Our end mill is already selected, so we don't have to do anything there. We are going to machine on the outside, which is perfect. That's what we want. And we're going to go ahead and scroll all the way to the bottom and hit calculate. Now, if everything goes as planned, when we create that profile toolpath on the outside, the arrows here, if I'm getting them in my drawing tab, you should see them on the outside edge of your pink line here. If for some reason you see these arrows on the inside of your line, that means that there's an issue with the machining process being done. Most cases, this should not be a problem. However, I have had instances where students accidentally have the wrong thing selected. So if I go back into that profile, they accidentally select inside, and you see those arrows on the inside of your object. Same thing, if you have it on, it's going to be cutting on the actual line that you drew. So definitely just pay attention to that before you go to save any of your work, and just double check yourself as you go. So let's close out of that, and let's go back to 3D view and see what these things look like as they're being simulated in the cutting. So if you aren't in 3D view or preview mode, you can go all the way down to the bottom of your toolpath operations. Last row, first icon there on the left, allows you to show up that preview, and you can hit preview toolpath there as well. When I do that, I can see my parts being cut out. Notice they're not cutting all the way through. There's still about an 1/8 inch of material left over that will be panel sanded. So we will remove that with the wide belt sander later on in the course. So everything is done at this point. We have our toolpaths. You're going to repeat the same operations, obviously a little bit different for the job setup, but for your other parts that you're going to need to cut out on the CNC. So hopefully this was helpful as you begin your process in creating your toolpaths that are ready then to be saved for the CNC operations that you're going to do here in class, specifically for this project. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me, catch me in the shop, or check in with your classmates. That's why you guys are working in groups to help each other out as you get started working on each of these projects. All right, looking forward to seeing your progress here in class. Have a great day.